Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to all the attendees of the Digital Investment Week for the Malaysia Tech Month 2021. Now, allow me to welcome the final presenter before the break. Here he will be presenting a snapshot of the OM Talent Market Report. So this is going to be very interesting, especially for those employers and employees or who are looking to be joining the workforce in a GBS. So please welcome Phil Captain, Research Chair of O&M. Over to you, Phil.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. It's good afternoon to everybody, and thanks for the great introduction. The sessions have been great so far, and it's been really interesting learning. So I just want to share with you that we spent the last 6-8 months trying to gather data because with this whole pandemic. So I'm going to share some insights on the report that we have had so far. Now, usually it's been said that there are some decades when nothing happens. And sometimes in weeks, decades happen. Guess what? The pandemic has just about done that to us. We always knew about digitalization coming. And we all took our own sweet time and how we want to do it. But guess what? Overnight, we had to prepare. And this is the whole human capital environment has gone into chaos, and organizations in particular challenges are struggling with talent form, flow, managing of two generations, the mature generations, the new generation, the Gen Y, the Gen Zs, the millennials. There's so many issues that are coming to the table at the same time. And then of course, you've got this shortage of needed talent in appropriate places. So this whole thing. Now, given all that, we've got new ways of working. All of a sudden, look at this seminar, it's all virtual. Otherwise, we'd be in a hall, we'd be talking, new ways of working, learning. Even myself, I'm still struggling, between an iPad and a laptop and a digital revolution and wondering which is the best tool to use at what time. It's chaos at best. However, things are beginning to clear, and you can see companies now beginning to harness the power of digitalization, the power of the internet, and the power of being able to take the message out in a lockdown world as we are still in a lot of places around the globe. So with that, we decided to look at the talent pool because, Malaysia has always been on the radar thanks to great work done by MDEC, bringing out the talent pool and telling us what's happening, where Malaysia is positioned, the environment, the economics, the background, the global landscape of MSC corridors, super corridors. So Malaysia has been on the landscape. It's been on the top 3, top 4 every time. Now let's see what is it in our talent market that we need to look at in order for us to be a bit more successful as we move forward. So if you would, please, the next slide. As you can tell, I'm struggling with this one because I can't see my slides right now. So it's been an interesting learning here. Hang on just 1 minute, please. Okay, there we go. All right, the first thing I definitely want to talk about is impact of COVID-19. Everyone talks about COVID-19. Everyone talks about impacts. Then everyone talks about pre-COVID, post-COVID. Everyone talks about these new words called normal, new normal. There's no new normal. There's going to be just a pre-normal. So as you can see, it's pretty obvious in the impact on revenue. Some have been devastated. Some, as we well know, some who are in certain kind of industry, especially as we obviously know, restaurants in the hospitality industry, they have been devastated. Revenues, the impact on revenue has been way above 60% for some of these industries. Other industries have been mildly infected, some of them as little as 30%. Now there are companies out there that have actually grown 60% or more in their revenues because of COVID. And that's a very interesting paradigm for me, especially. I have a company in AI, data analytics, and drones, using AI, using drones to capture data. My business has gone through the roof because since people cannot go out to capture data, let's say on the farms or in the buildings, IoT drones have become important. Drones don't get COVID, so they can go to places that human beings are told not to go to. So this whole game has changed. A lot of companies out there, look at our e-commerce companies. Amazing. You know, with that, all the shipping companies, Grabs, and all these companies that have grown astronomically, delivering food, delivering everything. Some restaurants are finding out and asking the question in the new normal, do I really need to open a restaurant again for dine-in? Or should I just stay now with the current model I have, which is takeaways and deliveries? So there are a lot of issues going around these kind of discussions nowadays. Now, if I look at the biggest change, WFH/A, if you wish. WFH is what? Work from home, as we all know. WFA is work from anywhere. I don't need to be at home. I could be on the beach in Penang. If I could get there, I could be doing the seminar from there. Right now I'm in lockdown, so I can't. But work from anywhere is also becoming a paradigm for people. And most people in the early parts of the pandemic recorded a decrease in productivity. People didn't know how. It's like me. I'm still struggling with lots of issues on laptops and different kind of laptops and different OSs and different meeting. So we're all struggling with some kind of decrease. However, lately, as things are getting a bit more stable, as things are getting a bit more understood, and people are understanding that, look, this work from home was not a temporary thing. It is here to stay. How much work from home, how much work from work, this will be determined by different industries, different companies as we move forward. But work from home or work from anywhere is here to stay. And in the world of digitalization, now people are looking at a 10 to 20% increase in productivity by their employees who are doing work from home. And that comes out very clearly in the talent market report. So if I go to the next slide really talks about evolving capabilities required for GBS providers. The one on the right side, which talks about responses to cost challenges. Look, that's always been there. You know, I mean, this is a constant thing. I don't care if it's COVID or non-COVID. We always have to be responsive to cost challenges and be cognitive of the cost that is people are going through when we do this. But look at the rest, future-oriented setups. What is this future-oriented setup? Can a salesman make sales calls? Should he go face-to-face? What is this future-oriented? What are some of the advanced service offerings that people are talking about? And this is where GBS really needs to force themselves to go in. And there's some data that I'll share with you that comes out of the talent market report. You know, technology enablers, of course, you know, GBS needs to be very available. I'm aware of technology enablers, how they're doing it, and finally, new ways of working for my own employees with relation to a client. How do you get there? How do you do these new ways of working? These 5 categories, especially the 4, future-oriented setup, critical. Take a call center, for example. is our traditional call center that we used to have a massive amount of desks in one location is a future-oriented setup? I don't know. Something has to be looked at because all these past norms are now being challenged in the weeks ahead. So if I go to my next slide, I just want to talk about how we did this report and what we came up with in salary trends. You know, we looked at 4 categories. This is the hardest part, by the way. How do you define startup, not startup, new category? So we looked at 4. The 4 being junior, senior, mid-management, and management. Now, we have not looked at leadership management, the C levels. Management does not include the C levels here in this slide. So if you look at junior, maybe a junior startup, 0 to 2 years experience, that's how we defined it. So when you read the talent market report, these are the kind of parameters that we used to define it. Then we have a senior, which is 2 to 4 years of experience, a mid-manager with 4 to 6 years of experience, and of course, more than 6 years would be a senior management team or management level, as we call it. Now, this is a very interesting thing at the junior levels. So maybe a startup wasn't coming out of college, or maybe been there 2 years or so. Finance and accounting still continues to be the top paid job for GPS companies at $3,400 per month. The next category is tax management, which average around $3,200 a month. And look at this, engineering average the least at $3,000. Now, it really goes to show that our GPS companies, where the focus is so far, we need to move up the scale and do things different and bring in new skill sets. And we have already heard about the program called STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. Malaysia also has acknowledged STEM, putting STEM into all the colleges and schools to get the kids ready for the new wave of STEM people that we needed. So overall, however, the salaries recorded about a 15% increase overall. So maybe it's not bad, even in a pandemic, people were seeing slight increases because people want to retain the talent and not lose it, which is what I'll show you later, which was talked about attrition or retention. So if I move to the next slide, as I move on, attrition and retrenchment of talent. Now, this has become a very, very, very key area. Attrition is when a person leaves willingly, right? They leave on their own. They find a better job offer or progression. And we're finding out today through the talent market report, there's a lot of poaching going on in the industries. Everybody's trying to poach known talent that has already had certain skill sets, because you can evolve, or it's a revolution or an evolution, right? To evolve to the next level. If you have a revolution, it's bloody, but it's fast. If you have an evolution, you can do evolution over time. People don't have time. They want to respond quickly to the new dynamic market changes that have happened in the last 2 weeks. Last 9 months to 18 that have been going on today. So attrition, better job offer, and career progression. Now, retrenchment, it's very interesting. Everybody in the survey blames COVID-19 as a rationale for retrenchment. I'm not sure if that's necessarily true, but they do say that. So we need to look below that to find out, is that really the true blame, or is it something we could have done better earlier? However, yes, COVID-19 did have an effect on certain industries, and hence, guess what? Retrenchment happened because the market just wasn't there. like a lot of, if you look at F&B, if the dining is closed, how many servers can I use inside the diner? Or dishwashers, all those kind of things have all been kind of put on hold in the background for a while. So as we move on to the next step, this is another key one we looked at, diversity and inclusion. And all the way creating a thriving digital or a thriving career culture within an organization. And I know all GBS companies talk about this. How do I maintain a thriving career culture? Now, in diversity, we noticed 41% of the local GBS companies in Malaysia do have women in leadership positions. It's a great start, great move. I think this number is only going to grow and probably get even better as we move along. Now, 22% of employees with special needs or who are underprivileged are also being employed, which I think is fantastic. It shows people that diversity and inclusion is working within most GBS organizations. However, having said that, more needs to be done. More needs to be done. Now, this thriving career culture, we found that in the report, most GBS organizations believe that in order to maintain people so that attrition is cut down and to create a thriving thriving career culture, most GBS organizations have moved into training and/or courses to keep their people up to date, move them up skills, get them ready for the next generation or the next wave, whatever. And it's been great. It's been working. Earlier, we talked about the digital industry skills framework that was put together with MDEC, particularly with OM, that leads exactly to that path. So there's a lot of emphasis in that. However, there's very moderate emphasis on salary. Now, we need to find a happy balance here. What is the appropriate salary growth? Because in our earlier slide, when we did the study, most attrition is based on career growth and better salary options. So this is going to be a real challenge for our GBS companies. As we focus on teaching and courses to get them ready for the next waves, we need to relook at our salary benchmarks. Are we in line? Are we paying people enough that they don't kind of flit out and move on? According to the research, most companies in GBS, that is not their focus, to keep people. Their focus by keeping people is to training and courses. So let me move on to the next one. Now, there's many ideas that I can have and talk about it, but the way forward for each one in the GBS industries and beyond, get the report. Pick areas that are strategic to you and your intent, your learning. Where can it be? And then let's work together to see how we can plug specific gaps to ensure that, one, your revenue grows. Number two, of course, cost is always an issue. That you have minimum amount of attrition, and of course, hopefully, minimum, if any, retrenchment. The only thing I'll also leave you with is please keep a track of your attrition rate. Someone needs to measure how many people are there. Most people don't measure attrition in the companies nowadays. Now, so it says, in the deepest of crises, great opportunities. You know, I read a line, it says, a crisis is a fantastic opportunity to waste. So I wish you luck in the weeks to come as GBS companies embrace the report. Decades could happen. So thank you very much for your time, and I turn it back to you now. for some Q&A.
Okay, Bill. So that's the end of your presentation. So quickly. Wow, we still got about maybe 10 minutes time. Let me just check on the questions. Okay, the first question I have, can you advise the very specific, can you advise the market price salary of a sales executive, 2 years in experience or lesser?
Well, you know, we looked at different categories, and if you read the report, it's in there. I don't know the number offhand, but I will tell you, it's not where it should be, according to the findings in the report. Because for me to go back to the report, I'll have to go back to many, many pages and flip it in there. But we do have those numbers, and we have them also for specific industries, sales and marketing. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Of course, this is yours is very specific towards the outsourcing and the GPS market. But
yes,
in general, could we go to the Job Street? Also, they have the annual report on the salary report, I believe.
They do.
Yeah. Okay. Work from home or work from anywhere is more stressful with so many choices of webinars. Like you said, some use Zoom, some you use Google Meet, some you use Microsoft Teams, sometimes you use your internal department type of communication. So how do you see how the question is, how do you advise on prioritization?
You know, that's been a very tough one, and everybody's dealing with it. You know, I think each company within at least within our GPS space has to establish their norms and find out which one works for them best. Like I know at GPS here in Malaysia, we have settled on Teams as the platform that we will use for all our events. And that's a decision. Now, whether it's right, wrong, good or bad, there isn't any. All of these platforms have pluses and minuses, and you know all the issues with each one of them. However, we need to sit down, and I know that the OM committee, especially under leadership of Justin, Liana, and all these kind of people in the background, which unfortunately we never see, have done a tremendous job of laying down how Teams works. For example, I give an example what happened to me. Today, we're doing this on Zoom. I did the same kind of work on Teams last time. And I'm working through my iPad. And when I flip my screen to my speaker notes, for example, the video conference still carried on with my video, with my picture, with the audio. But when I did it on Zoom, the video gets disconnected. So I don't know what to tell you. There is no perfect answer in here. Most leaders will define it for themselves and will look at especially certain actors of security, you know, working from home, having VPNs and all that kind of stuff, security. But I think most platforms have now matured quite well. But they do have the idiosyncrasies of working differently with different devices, an Android phone to an iOS phone to an iPad. I don't have an easy answer on that. Maybe we should do a study and find out, a comparative studies on different platforms.
Because previously when we were in the post norm, when we were all of us were working in the office, most of our head of departments were not physically there. They were moving around, right, but they were still communicating via Skype, via internal communications. And because it's being so global, sometimes your bosses don't even come into the office because they're in a different time zone. They're serving different time zones. They have to meet up with their headquarters based in New York, headquarters based in London. So during the day, you barely see them. So so that's how it was before, but now it's almost become a norm. And as you mentioned there on the security side, especially for very sensitive data like for banking, it requires a lot of scrutiny. Is it working from home, or can you actually work from home because you got so much data, which is open to everybody. As soon as your siblings or if you have a cousin who comes and drops by to see you from a different competitive bank, wouldn't that be a breach? You trust
Very
them.
true.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah.
very
Okay,
true.
going on, I think, okay, here they also question, when do you see a trend of the women in employment increasing to above 50% in leadership positions, and when?
Well, what I've seen in the market, and especially Malaysia, we're talking about relatively now, and relative to the GBS industry and beyond, I'm definitely seeing a push in that direction. Definitely. If given all things are equal and women have the skills to be in certain roles, I think it's definitely growing. We have great leaderships in GBS already, like Dr. Munira, who is leading, and she and other women like this have been doing great work to bring the women that we have on the front page. I definitely feel it will increase. But there's one question to be asked. As we move more into the IT kind of space, with digitalization is so IT savvy, are women ready for that? I always talk to my women girlfriends, and they're always IT challenges. Oh my God, what am I going to do? But from a leadership position, I think you're going to see more and more women, because they definitely bring a whole lot of different values, principles into the equation. So I think definitely going to go above 15. And I would be surprised if you see that number going above 50, even by the middle of next year.
Because currently in the workforce itself, I believe the number of employees, not in leadership position, in general, employees, I think females outnumber the males, because they are the ones who are being churned out from the universities, from the tertiary education. I myself was from the banking industry. I would say about 70% are women, and
Wow.
And from the local talent, I would say 60 to 65% of the leadership was female, homegrown. So that is very good.
Was that in the university field itself?
Come again?
Was that in the university areas, or where?
No, mostly among me or my friends within the banking industry.
Oh, in the
banking, yeah. And we were also doing outsourcing. Okay, so we could see that already in the hiring, 75% are women. I'm not sure why, but I believe it would be because of the number of graduates within that field of finance is more on the female side as compared to like engineering on the male side, more male dominated. But yeah, leadership is not a boys club anymore.
Yeah, but won't you just thought about finance and accounting? Our research shows that too. The highest paid jobs for a junior level entry today in the GBS industry is finance and accounting. It is the number one position. It's the highest paid. Engineering is much lower.
Okay. Interesting you brought up finance and accounting, because I do deal with some auditing firms, and the auditing firms or accounting firms, and if they were to go into more automation, then most probably their workforce would be reduced, because whatever they do, it can be done by a robot. So they would need to find a different skill set. However, yes, they said accountants can be very good data scientists, because they're very clinical, they're very analytical. So if you're in the workforce, if you're looking to become an accountant, instead of becoming an accountant, maybe work towards taking micro credentials in something on the data science or data mining. So it would be an upscale for them, for the current employee and also the future employee.
Absolutely, because if you look at it, the current accounting world, you can call them bookkeepers.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need them anymore.
Yeah.
That is automation will take over. But the data scientists, analytics, looking future of the world of accounting, wow, huge area, huge.
Yeah, it's a huge area. You have to put accounting and all these finance within. Yeah, of course, there's blockchain, the accountability in blockchain. So it reduces the amount of maybe auditing and also the amount of checking back where the original part is. So it's easier, but you must understand the data. They have to learn to understand, to interpret the data, what they have. Okay, I'm not sure how you could answer. Okay, one final question. Any advice on how do we ensure the vulnerable demographics are included as well in the evolving workspace?
Vulnerable demographics, meaning I'm not sure I understand the question.
Or maybe the minorities, maybe the minorities, maybe those who are living in the rural areas or those who have disabilities.
Yeah. This has always been the toughest one for anybody in any industry, GPS or otherwise. I guess the best way to look at it is make sure that you have feelers out looking actively for people in disability situations, in reaching out to certain institutions or certain places that really are doing disability programs and finding out if there are skill sets that you can bring in towards your organization. I don't think there's any one organization that lists disability people as a separate database. I guess maybe that would be another good way. We don't know.
Yeah, it could be, maybe you put that part of the KPI, for example, the minimum number of people maybe who are vision impaired or maybe hearing impaired or maybe have no limbs, a minimum maybe 2.5 or 3%. I have a friend who has no legs and deformed hand, but he's an accountant in the government office.
Wow.
So you can still tap into those resources. So yeah.
And the question, where do you find them? That's the harder part that I was getting to. Yes, you can set your KPIs, and I think that's important. I was just having a conversation on McDonald's globally.
Yes,
McDonald's. They have set that as a KPI for the entire leadership team, for women and special needs people. So it can happen, but it just requires focus from somebody within the organization who makes it their KPI and then goes out to them.
And of course, that's an additional cost of training, maybe extra equipment, special equipment. So it has to go for a balance of profit and also corporate social responsibility. All right. Okay, I believe that's the end. Thank you so much for the discussion. It's great to have you and tapping on what is from the research and also from what we discussed from the Q&A.
Get the report.
All right. Is the report available to the general public, or is it only for the members of OM?
For right now, it's for the members of the OM and as a free, because they pay membership as a value added for them.
So
the rest,
it's accessible by the leadership or accessible by any of the employees in OM?
No, right now by the leadership of the company who's an OM member. And then they distribute it out. But for the people outside the OM chapter, we're working on a small charge to offset the cost of putting together. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Phil. Thank you for your insights. Thank you. All right. Thank you. And that's it for the morning session. Great to have Phil on board. We will now take a break and resume later at 2:30 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Okay, see you then.